The wind howled through the trees, cold and angry. Mason sat alone in his small wooden cabin, deep in the forest. He had lived there for 5 quiet years, far from people, far from war, far from noise, just him, his tools, and the peace he had built. But that peace broke the moment he heard the knock. It wasn't loud, just soft, almost like someone tapping a spoon on wood. Tap, tap. Tap. Mason froze, staring at the door. No one ever came here, not unless they were lost or desperate. He reached for the old rifle resting beside the fireplace, his hand steady but alert. Cautiously, he stepped toward the door, the wood creaking. Under his boots, another knock, softer this time, then silence. He opened the door slowly, letting the wind push in, carrying snow and leaves. But there was no one, just the night, just the forest. Just wait, there on the doorstep, wrapped in a torn blanket, lay a small bundle. A strange shape, not quite human, not quite animal. Mason blinked, then knelt down. It was a baby, but not a human one. Its skin was pale silver, its eyes closed, small tendrils curled near its head. It was breathing barely. Mason looked around. Heart pounding. Who would leave something like this here? And why? He picked up the bundle gently, the tiny creature so light in his arms. It made a weak sound, like a whimper. It was cold, almost frozen, without thinking. Mason brought it inside. Closing the door with a loud click, he placed the baby on a towel near the fire, started heating milk, though he had no idea if that's what it needed. Still, he couldn't just watch it die. He wrapped it in layers of cloth, trying to keep it warm. As the fire cracked and popped, Mason sat down beside the alien baby. His mind raced. What was this thing? Where did it come from? Who had left it? Then a thought chilled him more than the wind. If someone left the baby here, maybe they were still close. Maybe they were watching. He turned off the lights and walked to the window, careful not to be seen. The forest was dark, silent, but his instincts said he wasn't alone. He scanned the trees. For a moment, nothing moved. Then something, far out between the trees. 2 glowing eyes watched his cabin. They didn't blink. They didn't move, just watched. Mason's breath caught in his throat. He didn't know what it was. But it wasn't human. Could it be the baby's mother? Why didn't she come to the door? Why leave her child? He backed away from the window slowly and looked at the child. It was resting now, small chest rising and falling. He should call someone, authorities, maybe the military, but something inside him said no. They wouldn't help. They'd take the baby. Run tests, maybe worse. Mason sighed and ran a hand over his face. This wasn't how his quiet life was supposed to go. But he couldn't ignore the baby. And he couldn't ignore the eyes in the woods either. He stayed awake the whole night, watching both the fire and the window outside. The storm grew worse, but the eyes didn't leave. The alien mother didn't knock again. She just stayed in the shadows, hungry, cold, afraid, and inside. Her child slept in the warmth of a stranger's home, safe for now, asterisk. The morning sun broke through the clouds, lighting up the cold forest, but Mason didn't feel warmth. He hadn't slept at all. The alien baby still slept near the fire, wrapped tightly in fresh towels. Its skin had a soft glow now, and its chest moved with calm, steady breaths. Mason had kept the window curtain slightly open all night. He checked every hour, and those glowing eyes, they never left. They watched in silence, like the forest itself was alive. At dawn the eyes were gone, but Mason knew whatever it was, it would be back. He stepped outside, holding a warm cup of coffee. The air was sharp, and the snow was deep. He scanned the woods, but saw nothing. Then he noticed something strange, near a tree. A shallow patch of disturbed snow. It looked like someone had sat there for hours, unmoving. Next to it, tiny claw marks, maybe from bare hands digging through snow to reach roots or insects. Mason's heart sank. Whoever left that baby. They didn't just leave. They stayed. They starved. They watched. That night, Mason made a plan. He placed a plate of warm food, roasted rabbit and potatoes outside, just beyond the porch. He turned off the porch light and left the door unlocked. Then he waited. Hours passed. The baby slept peacefully, the fire crackled softly. Then, just past midnight, the door creaked. Mason turned toward it slowly, not wanting to scare whoever was there. But no one entered. Instead, he heard soft footsteps, bare feet on frozen wood. A pause, then a soft whimper, like someone crying but trying not to be heard. Mason peeked through the gap in the curtain. There she was. She was crouched beside the plate of food, her hands shaking as she picked up a potato. Her skin shimmered pale lavender under the moonlight, her long limbs thin and tired. She didn't eat like a wild animal. She ate like someone who had known hunger for too long. Mason didn't speak. He didn't move. He just watched when she finished. She sat back and looked at the door. Her eyes, those same glowing eyes, were full of pain and longing. She didn't knock. She didn't try to come in. She just sat there, hugging her knees, staring at the place where her baby now slept. Mason opened the door slowly. She flinched but didn't run. He stepped out with a thick blanket in his hands and placed it on the edge of the porch. The alien mother stared at him, tense, silent. He pointed to the blanket, then stepped back inside, leaving the door half open. From the corner of his eye, he saw her inch forward. She picked up the blanket and wrapped it around her fragile body. Then she sat back down and cried. Silent tears fell from her glowing eyes. She didn't make a sound, but Mason felt her sorrow like a knife to the heart. Inside, the baby stirred. A soft coo, a tiny movement. The mother's head snapped up. And for a moment, Mason saw the fire inside her, the fire of a mother protecting her child, but she didn't move. She didn't ask to come in. She just stared at the walls that kept her baby warm, and she stayed there, outside in the cold. Wrapped in a blanket given by a stranger, Mason sat near the fire all night. Every time he looked out, she was still there, watching, waiting, afraid to come in, but too heartbroken to walk away. At sunrise, she was gone again. The blanket was folded neatly by the door, and beside it, a small carved stone, shaped like a heart, asterisk. 3 days had passed since the alien mother last came. Every morning, Mason checked the porch, hoping to find her, but there was nothing, no footprints, no stone gifts, just cold wind and silence. Still, he left food outside every night, and every morning the plate was empty. She was still out there, watching, waiting, surviving. The baby whom Mason had started calling Luma was growing stronger. She responded to his voice now, reaching out with her tiny tendrils. Her skin glowed slightly brighter each day. She made soft clicking sounds. Like she was trying to speak, Mason spoke to her gently, even though he knew she didn't understand. But it comforted both of them. One night, while the snowstorm returned with force, Mason heard something strange. Not a knock, not footsteps, but a whisper, carried by the wind. It wasn't English. It was something else, soft, melodic, painful. It repeated over and over. He pressed his ear to the window, but couldn't tell where it was coming from. Then Luma began to cry, not from hunger or cold. It was something deeper, something sad. He picked her up and walked to the door. As he opened it, a strong gust of wind blew inside, almost pulling the fire out. But through the swirl of snow, he saw a faint shape near the trees. She was there. The alien mother stood barefoot in the snow, her body swaying like she was about to fall. Her arms were wrapped around herself, and her eyes were full of panic. She wasn't whispering anymore. She was calling, begging. Mason stepped outside, holding Luma tight. The moment the baby saw her mother, her glowing skin pulsed and she reached out. The alien mother gasped, a small cry escaping her lips, but she didn't move. She looked down at her feet. Ashamed, afraid. Mason understood then. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid she didn't deserve her own child anymore. Slowly, carefully, Mason walked forward and placed Luma gently in the snow between them. The baby let out a happy, strange noise and rolled slightly toward her mother. The alien woman dropped to her knees and crawled forward. Tears froze on her cheeks, but she didn't care. She pulled the baby close, hugging her tightly, rocking her gently. Mason didn't speak, he just stood there, heart heavy with something he didn't know how to name. The moment was pure, quiet, sacred. But it didn't last. A sound broke the peace. A deep hum from the sky. Mason looked up, eyes wide. A ship, dark and silent, hovered above the forest. Its lights barely visible through the storm. It wasn't human. It moved too smooth, too quiet. The alien mother looked up and froze. Her face went pale, and she hugged the baby tighter. Mason grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the cabin. She resisted at first, her eyes full of fear, but then she followed. They rushed inside just as a beam of red light passed over the snow where they had stood. Mason shut the door and bolted it. The alien mother crouched in the corner, shielding. Her baby, Luma, cried, sensing the danger. Outside, the ship hovered for a long minute, scanning, searching. Then, without warning, it vanished into the clouds, silent as it came. Inside the cabin, no one spoke. The fire cracked softly, the only sound in the room. The alien mother looked at Mason, eyes full of fear and gratitude. For the first time, she reached out, placing a trembling hand on his. Mason nodded. He didn't know her name or her story, but he knew one thing: she wasn't safe out there anymore. And neither was the child. *4. The first time, Mason had company in his cabin. Not just a glowing baby, but her mother, quiet and broken. The alien woman kept to the corner near the fireplace, never speaking, never eating much. Her eyes always followed her child. Every coo, every breath, every shift in Luma's glow brought a flicker of life back to her face. But something about her still didn't sit right with Mason. There was more behind those glowing eyes, something she wasn't telling him. Mason tried to talk to her, simple words, soft voice, gentle hands. She didn't respond, not at first. Then one evening, as snow piled outside the windows, she surprised him. She pressed her hand on her chest and said a word: "Valari." Her voice was deep, soft, almost like wind moving through leaves. Mason repeated it: "Valari." She nodded slowly. Then she pointed at the baby, Luma. So now he had names: Valari, the mother, Luma, the child. It made things feel a little less alien, a little more human. But that night, Mason had a dream, or at least he thought it was a dream. He woke to whispers again, strange, musical tones floating through the air like smoke. He opened his eyes and saw Valari standing over Luma, but her skin, it was glowing brighter than before. Moving, shifting, almost alive. Symbols pulsed across her arms, glowing orange and gold, ancient and unreadable. Her hands hovered over the child, not touching but trembling. Her lips moved fast, whispering the same word again and again. Then Mason blinked, and it was gone. Valari was sitting by the fire, silent, still, like nothing had happened. He wanted to ask her the next morning, but how could he? She barely spoke, and whatever language she used wasn't one he understood. Still, questions burned inside him. Who was she running from? What was that ship? And what was she doing to her child at night? Later that day, Mason stepped outside to chop wood. Valari and Luma were sleeping, or so he thought as the axe hit the log. Mason heard a faint vibration in the air, not a sound, more like a feeling. He turned quickly, and his eyes caught a shimmer near the side of the cabin. He crept over, boots crunching in snow, and then he saw its symbols carved into the back wall of his home, the same symbols he had seen glowing on Valari's skin. They weren't there yesterday. They glowed faintly, like they were burned into the wood without fire. As he touched one, it was warm, pulsing slightly like a heartbeat. "What are you?" he whispered to himself. That night, Valari stared at him differently, like she knew he had seen them. She reached for his hand and pressed his palm against her arm. The symbols on her skin lit up again, slow, glowing lines wrapping around his fingers, and for one moment, just 1 second, Mason saw images in his mind. A planet, green and gold. A city in flames, Valari running, carrying Luma, strange figures in black armor. Hunting, grabbing, killing, a voice in her head, not hers, telling her to flee to find the human with the heart of silence. Then the vision vanished. Valari pulled her arm away, eyes wide, afraid she had shared too much. But Mason didn't pull back. He understood now. She hadn't just landed here by accident. She had been looking for him. He stepped back, overwhelmed. Was she sent here? Why him? And what did the heart of silence mean? That night, as he watched them sleep, one final thought crept into his mind. Valari was not just a mother, and Luma. She was not just a baby. There was something inside her, something powerful, something someone wanted to hide or destroy. Asterisk. The snow outside melted slowly as days passed. Inside the cabin, warmth returned, but not peace. Mason couldn't forget the symbols, the vision, or the soft voice that spoke in his mind. Valari had shared something with him, not just a memory, but a warning, and now, Mason couldn't sleep the same way anymore. Luma had started glowing in short pulses. She made strange humming sounds in her sleep, and once, when she cried, the fireplace flared up as if touched by a sudden wind. Mason knew this wasn't just alien biology. Something deeper was happening, something Valari hadn't explained yet. He watched her one night, while she rocked Luma gently in her arms. Her eyes were heavy, her body weak. She barely ate, always giving her share to her baby first. Mason couldn't take it anymore. "Why me?" he whispered. "Why bring her to me?" Valari looked up slowly, then her hand reached for his again, just like before. This time she didn't show him fire or fleeing soldiers. She showed him her past, a great hall filled with light and songs. She had been someone important, a guardian, a priestess, maybe even royalty. Luma had been born under a red star during a time of war. The enemy feared her, not because of what she was, but because of what she might become. A child born of both light and shadow, carrying an old power in her blood. The images shifted. Valari hiding in caves, flying across stars and stolen ships, one after another falling apart, until the last one crash-landed on Earth. She had searched for help, but no one understood. So half dead, she left her baby at the door of a human's home, hoping, praying. Mason's eyes filled with tears. He felt her pain as if it were his own. She hadn't just run. She had made the hardest choice a mother could make, to let go of her child for the sake of her safety. Valari pulled her hand back and spoke slowly, not in full words, but pieces Mason could understand. "Luma, not safe. Hunters. Follow, need you." He shook his head. "I don't understand why me. I'm just a man who lives in the woods." Valari pointed to her chest, then to his. "Heart," she said. "Yours." Different. That night, as Mason held the sleeping child, his heart beat louder than ever. He remembered the words in the vision. The human with the heart of silence. Was that what she meant? Was that him? Was he chosen because he had nothing? No family, no war, no noise, only peace? Only quiet? Maybe that was what the child needed. But peace doesn't last long when darkness is chasing you. The next morning, Valari woke up coughing hard. Her skin was pale, her glow dimming. Mason touched her forehead. It was cold. Too cold. She was burning from the inside out. Whatever poison or infection she had picked up on Earth, it was finally catching her. She looked at him, her voice weak. "Luma, protect when I..." "Gone." "No," Mason whispered. "You'll live. I'll get you help." He ran to his shed looking for medicine. Bandages, anything. But it was too late. Valari's breaths grew shallow. Her eyes fluttered. She held Luma close one last time, placing a glowing kiss on her forehead. A faint hum filled the cabin, like a lullaby from another world. Luma's eyes blinked, soft and blue. She cooed, as if sensing something leaving the air. Valari laid back, smiling. She reached for Mason's hand and whispered, "Promise." "Keep her warm." Mason nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I promise," he said. "I promise." And just like that, the light in Valari's body faded. Leaving behind silence, Mason wrapped her gently, placed her near the fire she loved. And for the first time in years, he wept like a child. He had lost someone he didn't even know he needed. And now he wasn't just alone anymore. He was a guardian. Snow covered the roof of Mason's cabin like a thick white blanket. Inside it was quiet. Too quiet. Valari's body had been buried near the tallest tree behind the cabin. Mason had carved her name into a stone and placed it at the head of the grave. He didn't know what her customs were, but he gave her the best farewell he could. He didn't speak during the burial. There were no words strong enough. Only silence and his promise. Now Luma was his. He fed her, bathed her, kept her warm. She laughed sometimes like a child who didn't know sadness yet. Her glow returned, brighter each day, but Mason could feel something in the air. A tension, a chill that wasn't from the wind. Something was coming. It started with strange noises in the woods. Low hums, electric clicks. Then he found tracks deep round, too perfect to be human or animal machines. He placed motion sensors around the cabin, old military gear he thought he'd never use again. That night, they blinked red. Not one. Not two 7 lights flashing in sync. Mason grabbed his rifle and ran to the window. And there they were, 7 dark figures standing in a wide circle around his cabin. Tall, armored, faceless. Their suits pulsed with blue lights, and long rifles rested in their hands. They didn't speak, didn't move. They just watched. Mason's heart pounded. He looked at Luma still sleeping, peaceful. She had no idea her life was once again in danger. Suddenly, one of the hunters stepped forward. He raised his hand and touched something on his chest. A voice boomed into the cabin. "Return the child," it said, robotic and cold. "No harm will come to you." Mason stood frozen. He didn't move, didn't answer. "Return the child," the voice repeated. Louder, sharper. "She is not yours." He tightened his grip on the rifle. "No," Mason said under his breath. "She's not yours either." The ground shook as 2 of the hunters stepped closer. Their weapons hummed, ready. Mason backed up, placed his body between them and the baby. He didn't have high-tech armor or laser rifles. He had only one thing, his choice. And he had already made it. He grabbed a backpack and filled it fast blankets, food, water, the small stone Valari had left behind. He lifted Luma gently. Holding her tight against his chest, she stirred, glowing softly. "I got you, little one," he whispered. "I won't let them take you." There was a hidden path behind the cabin, one only Mason knew. It led through a rocky ravine and into the old mining tunnels, dark. Narrow but safe, he moved fast, boots silent on frozen ground, behind him. The cabin shook with sound as the hunters smashed through the front door. Lights beamed through windows, scanning, sweeping, finding nothing. Mason and Luma were already gone. Deep in the tunnel, Luma woke and looked up at him. She didn't cry. She placed her tiny hand on his chest, right where his heart beat, and for a moment, Mason felt warmth spread through his body. Like her glow was now inside him too, back at the cabin. One of the hunters found the carved stone near Valari's grave. He touched it, and a strange pulse passed through his armor. He turned to the others. "She's activated the Guardian," he said. "They are bonded," another hunter replied. "Then we must destroy him and take the child." The leader raised his hand. "No," he said coldly. "If we kill the Guardian now, the child's power will awaken." The tunnels echoed with footsteps, dripping water, and Mason's quick breath. He clutched Luma tightly, feeling her small hand pulse against his chest. They moved deeper into the dark, cold earth, away from the hunters' flashing lights and loud weapons. But Mason knew this was not a place to hide forever. Outside, the hunters prepared their plan. They would flush Mason and Luma out no matter what. Their leaders spoke in cold, sharp commands: find them or destroy everything. But the others were nervous. The bond between Mason and Luma was stronger than they expected. It was like a shield, unseen but powerful. Mason stopped at a small cavern lit by glowing crystals. He set Luma down gently, watching as her light filled the space with soft color. She looked at him with eyes that seemed to see into his soul. He whispered, "We have to fight, little one. She responded with a soft hum, almost like a promise. Suddenly, the ground shook, dust falling from above. The hunters had found them. They burst into the cavern with weapons raised, but Mason was ready. He had learned much from Vilari, how to use light, how to bend it. He raised his hands and felt the warmth grow inside. A shield of glowing energy surrounded them both. The hunters fired, but the beams stopped at the shield. Melting into sparks, one hunter stepped forward. His helmet cracked to reveal glowing red eyes. "You cannot protect her forever," he said, voice harsh. "But we will take the child. With or without you." Mason stood firm. "This child is not a weapon," he said, voice steady. "She is a life like any other." Luma's glow brightened. Her tiny hands reached out, and suddenly, the crystals in the cavern exploded with light. Energy rippled through the air. Pushing the hunters back, they screamed and covered their faces. Unable to fight the pure power of the child, Mason took a deep breath. Feeling a strange calm in the chaos, he stepped forward, holding Luma close. "We will not run anymore," he said. "We will stand and protect this world together." The hunters faltered, unsure how to fight such power. The leader growled, "This is not over." And with a roar, the hunters retreated into the tunnels, vanishing into the darkness. But Mason knew they would return. Luma looked up at him, her eyes shining with trust and hope. Together, they walked back toward the surface. The snow was melting, the sky clearing. The world was still dangerous, but Mason was no longer alone. He had found a new family, a new purpose, and with the child's light to guide him, he was ready for whatever came next.